I was lucky enough to playtest Daggerheart with the lead designer and Ginny D and Pointy Hat. And yes, they were all as cool as you think they are, but the surprising combat mechanics of Daggerheart were a big part of what made our session fun. So I'm going to tell you about it, because I'm Bob, this is where we learn how to have more fun playing RPGs together, and the giant asterisk on this video is this was a playtest session. So Daggerheart Combat could be different by now, but at the time of recording this video, they haven't released any playtest updates. So assuming you have a base understanding of D&D, because Critical Role.
Yep.
The first eyebrow raiser of Daggerheart Combat is in the initiation and turn order, because there is no initiative order. But I don't think you'll miss it. Much like alignment and having a big ability score even though you only use the small ability modifier, roll initiative is mostly still around because it's part of the D&D brand, and it's kind of fun. But it's definitely not an efficient piece of game design unless you're using a VTT to automate it. And personally, I haven't called for an initiative roll in over a year of gameplay because I think the game to combat transition and combat itself all moves a little smoother without it. So how does Daggerheart determine whose turn it is? It's just like the rest of the game. You simply say when you want to do something, and believe it or not, the game did not erupt into total chaos with Ginny D taking turns over and over again, refusing to let anyone else play. Everyone just took turns when it felt right, and we all had a good time. To be clear, no players tried to act more than once before everyone else got a chance, and I assume that's baked into the rules to define a round of combat, but I don't recall the GM specifying that as a rule. However, there was one clear rule that I really liked. Every time a player character acted, that player gave the GM an action token. We used these little plastic gems, and these tokens were essentially a currency for the GM, cashing them in order to do more things or more powerful things as the enemy creatures, which, by the way, were a bunch of feral gnomes trying to steal our stuff. So at one point, the GM built up a bunch of these action tokens, and the gnomes detonated some kind of explosive device that hit a bunch of us all at once. But the GM later revealed that it's usually more powerful monsters who get the more powerful attacks to spend tokens on. So when does the GM take their turn and spend these tokens? Whenever they want. No, I'm kidding. The GM can choose to go after any player character rolls their action with fear. Yes, drawing on Daggerheart's core roll of 2d12, 1 die for hope, 1 die for fear, simply rolling higher on the fear die is a roll with fear. So there's always a 50-50 shot that the GM gets to go after a PC's turn. But even if the players keep rolling fear and the GM keeps getting to act, I think each monster is only supposed to act once per round, and or the GM is limited by the amount of action tokens they have, one way or another, naturally balancing the action economy and preventing the dreaded combat death spiral. Now, all that might seem kind of complicated since it's new and different, and it took me more than 10 seconds to break down, so here's the recap. Players take 1 action per round when they want to, giving a token to the GM. After a player rolls with fear, the GM can take actions by spending those tokens. That's it. So let me know what you really think of Daggerheart Combat Order down in the combats while I tell you a bit about this video's awesome sponsor, the Tomb of Gygax, the official adventure, homage, and campaign setting honoring Gary Gygax, a collaboration between Luke Gygax, yep, Gary's original playtester turned game designer, and Alphinius Goo, maker of fine 5e compatible adventures. GUI Cube adventures are already known for gorgeous handouts and NPC portraits, and this special box set contains all that with the complete Gygax adventure, a Game Master reference book, plus new monsters, spells, magic items, a new 5e class, a very special cast of NPCs, and if you pre-register to be notified when the Kickstarter launches and then back it, depending on your backer level, you receive extra game materials up to a $200 value. So check out the Tomb of Gygax through the link below. Alright, another aspect of Daggerheart Combat that at first might ruffle some D&D feathers is how it handles movement, and specifically how they measured distances. But let me say up front that functionally, Daggerheart distances were just an elegant way to illustrate the 5e distances you already know without needing a grid. So, Rather than 5-foot squares, distance is broken into zones, and here's how I remember them. Melee. You already know. Very close, same as 5e's reach. Close, 1 movement. Far, 2 moves, aka a dash. And very far, ranged only. On one hand, you could easily abstract these zones for theater of mind, but we use them on a table with miniatures. The GM declared specific measurable distances using items already on the table. Like, melee is the short edge of a card. Very close is the long edge of a card. Close is the length of a pencil. Far is the short edge of a character sheet, and very far is the long edge of a character sheet or farther. So if you're not into abstract zonal distances for RPGs, that's fine. But if you play 5e, you're already using all of these exact same zones, and I imagine that the complete rules will contain round measurements in feet for each of them, so you can use them on a VTT too, but we'll have to wait and see. Now what about rolling attacks, the real combat part? Let's refer to this handy sheet from my playtest session about action rolls. Roll 2d12, add a relevant attribute, determine whether hope or fear was higher, or if both dice were the same number, it's a crit. On a crit, you get what you want and more. Gain 1 hope, clear 1 stress. Success with hope, you get what you want and gain 1 hope. Success with fear, get what you want, but at a cost, like the GM getting to attack you afterward. Miss with hope, don't get what you want, but you still gain 1 hope. Miss with fear, that scene from Willy Wonka.
You get nothing! You lose!
Then, on a successful attack, roll a number of weapon dice equal to your proficiency and add them together. Or on a crit, also add the max damage from 1 die. So when we started at level 1, my character was rolling 1d10 for his halberd, but the GM wanted us to level up halfway through the session and try that out, and I chose to increase my proficiency so then I could roll 2d10 for damage. This all means that for the player, attacking feels like 5e, where you roll to hit, and if you hit, then you roll damage. But receiving attacks is like a combo of what I've talked about in videos for Cairn and DC 20. Basically, a Daggerheart character has armor, but no armor class target number. Enemy attacks just hit, and the damage they deal is determined by the player character's damage thresholds. Again, right from my playtest character sheet, if I take more than 12 damage, my severe threshold, I mark 3 hit points. But this is where armor comes in. I could spend a slot of armor to roll my armor die and reduce the incoming damage by that amount, possibly dropping it to a lower threshold to mark fewer hit points. And if you take damage below your lowest threshold, I believe, from what I remember, that you mark stress instead of hit points. But stress is also a resource for using some class and domain features. So if you fill up your stress, but then take more stress that should have been damage, it overflows right to your hit points anyway. And when you mark all of your hit points, you die. Fortunately, no PCs died in our session, so we didn't cover this, but the original playtest rules for Daggerheart Death gives the player 3 options. 1. Accept death and go out in a blaze of glory, gaining an automatic crit on 1 final action. 2. Reject death, but permanently remove 1 slot for hope, which is kind of another resource and how you give yourself advantage and stuff. It's cool, so you don't really want to lose that slot. And 3. Leave it to chance. Roll 2d12, and if hope prevails, you live. If fear prevails, you're dead. Then, let's say you want to make a new character. Daggerheart currently has class-specific character sheets that cover specialized starting equipment, specialized prompts to help you visualize your character, create a unique but incredibly simple backstory with goals, allies, and rivals, and establish connections with other members of the party. And it has all the info for how your class levels up. So if you want to see all that right now, support the channel by joining my Patreon, where I already posted some pictures of my character sheet, or just get this video to 5,000 likes, which I know you can do because the last one about this frog guy hit 10,000 likes. And then I'll make that next video sooner rather than later. Thanks again to the Tomb of Guys and Gax for sponsoring this video. Thank you patrons and YouTube members for making all this possible, but thank you for your support, and keep building.